Manipulation. Unfortunately, it's something we all have to deal with. There are just too many people in this world who are very manipulative to ever get away from it. And depending on what you do, where you go, what your work is, if you choose to be a foster parent as I have, if you choose to perhaps do different charitable work in different places, maybe work with people who have drug addictions, work with people who are homeless, work with people in various parts of society, various parts of life, you may encounter more or less of individuals who have a manipulative personality. But unfortunately, one thing that I've come to realize is a number of us don't necessarily recognize it when we encounter manipulation because it fools us. We think it is something different than what it actually is. So then, what is manipulation? Perhaps the best way to understand it is through understanding the opposite. So, what is the inverse of manipulation? If you think it's to be passive, then you are absolutely wrong. You're about as wrong as you are to say that the opposite of going forward is to stop. The opposite of going forward is to go backwards. So manipulation has an opposite, which is not being passive or being submissive. The opposite of manipulation, the way I usually term it, is to say formative. But another way you can understand it is to be basically a parent, to be motherly, to be fatherly. That is the opposite of being manipulative. In other words, a person who is manipulative will fool you into thinking that they care, and they will fool you into being obedient to them because you think that they will what is best. You see, a parent gets children to be obedient to them because they care, because they love them, because they're out for that child's best interest. But for a manipulative person, they want to get people to listen to them and to be obedient to them, not because it's what's best for that other person, but it's because it's what's in the best interest of the manipulator, the manipulative individual. It's their interest that they're after, but they want to fool you and sort of sugarcoat it into seeming like what's in their selfish interest is really about you. So, how do you go about telling if someone is being this manipulator or if they legitimately care? Because, to be completely frank with you, if we could just easily tell the difference between someone who cares and someone who sort of fake cares, who really is just trying to manipulate us, if we could easily tell the difference, then manipulative people would not exist because they would never get what they want from their methods. But they fool us all the time. They fool us. We think that they do care. So how do you tell the difference between someone who legitimately cares and someone who's being a manipulator, who gives the impression of caring, but in reality they're just trying to serve their own self? There are two methods for this. The first method is to see the effects. So within the past month, 2 months, I've encountered several manipulative people as a foster parent. Some of them have been within the context of foster care, some have been outside the context of foster care. And in both of these cases, I've had individuals who make accusations against me, whether it be through the sort of legal process, with foster care, or whether it just be a sort of outside accusation of how I'm managing a child. And the accusation operates under the pretext of what you're doing is wrong, and I want to let you know that it's wrong because I care. Or, within the foster care system, it might be within the context of I'm watching you. You better not make a single misstep, right? And the sort of context is because I care about my children who are in the foster care system, right? And so I'm watching every teeny tiny move. And if you step even a little bit out of line, I'm going to report you. So within both of these contexts, and both these events that have happened within the past several months for me, how can I tell that it's manipulation that's going on and it isn't legitimate caring? One of the methods is the effect. In both of these cases, a different amount each time, but in both of these cases, the effect it had on me was it increased my stress, and as a result of increased stress, it increased my impatience. In other words, I'm working with kids who aren't necessarily very obedient. It might take saying something 5 times to get them to actually listen and obey me. So if I feel like these people are sort of watching my every move and just waiting for me to make a misstep, then what is occurring is I'm now sort of self-conscious of this, self-conscious of the fact that these kids who've had a difficult past, they're not obeying me first time. And as a result of that, it's causing my agitation to rise. And as my agitation rises, I'm effectively making missteps with the kids because I no longer have that sort of leeway of sort of patience and understanding and just, we're going to get to the end result. It's okay. We're going to get there, right? But with these people who, like I said, I can tell they're manipulators through the effects, or they have ill effects. By way of what they're doing, they're causing my relationship with the kids to deteriorate or get worse because I'm so worried about what they're going to see or how they're going to judge me that I'm no longer worried about maintaining a strong and sort of loving relationship with the child that will form them. Remember, it's the opposite of manipulation is to be formative or to be very parenting, very, in my case, fatherly. So, in effect, their manipulation is causing me to neglect my fatherly role because manipulation is its opposite. It's destroying that in me because now instead of worrying about trying to take care of the kids and what's best for them, I'm worried about other people's opinion and manipulation. Okay? So that is one of the methods to tell when manipulation is occurring is the ill effects it's having. The other way to tell if someone is manipulative in nature is just to simply watch how they operate, watch how they live their life, and ask the question, is that someone who is acting selflessly? In other words, are they a compassionate, caring, loving, selfless person? Or are they selfish, as in they're constantly seeking what's for their own benefit? It could be completely outside of the context of what they are saying and doing and interacting with you. But seeing that even outside of the context of how they're interacting with you, fundamentally, they can't be the opposite. Remember what I said? They can't be the sort of formative parenting type of person if they are acting out of continual self-interest. So, for example, with the one issue I had in foster care, any interaction I had with this particular adult, I'm going to keep ambiguity just because it's so recent, but with this particular adult, every interaction I had with them, it was sort of a continual, this past event that happened, let me sort of regurgitate to you. Even though you didn't ask for it, I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to talk about it, but I'm going to sort of change the story a little bit. And I'm going to make it sound like other people wronged me. Right? That's how this adult does it. I didn't ask for you to talk about that. Yes, I know about that past event that occurred. Yes, I know all the repercussions that happened of it. I don't need you just out of context, just randomly re-bringing it up to focus, and then sort of changing the storyline to make it seem like they harmed you rather than what I know the reality was of the situation. And it was like this on multiple accounts. Or another instance is this particular person mentioned something to me, and I said, oh, but I don't fully agree with that because of this and this and this. And then within, I would say, 3 minutes, the story completely reversed. Oh, I never did that. I did something completely different. And it's not true, I didn't do that. And so, you can tell when they operate that way, when they change the story, they're lying. They're deliberately lying. But what they're doing is they're trying to figure out what keeps you going, what is in your interest, what you approve of and disapprove of. And they're trying to create a story. So it's a facade. They're trying to create a story surrounding their life and their actions that sort of matches up with what your expectations, desires, wants, beliefs are. They're trying to match it up. And you can tell that they're deliberately doing this because of the fact that they will change the story, perhaps immediately, perhaps after a length of time, anytime you make it known that you aren't in full agreement with something. That's one of the ways in which you can tell that they're a manipulative individual. And so here's the problem is you can either be a sort of parenting type person, right? Fatherly. I'll just say fatherly because I'm a male. But recognize when I say fatherly, if you're female, just hear it as motherly, okay? So you can either be a sort of fatherly individual, or you can be a manipulative individual. But you can't be both. They're complete and total contradictions. So like I said, a fatherly or motherly individual is focused on their selfless, right? They're focused on what is in the other person's best interest. They're focused on truth, right? They seek out what's true. It doesn't change over time. There's no trying to figure out what makes you tick and feed that back to you. No. Whatever the truth is, that's the truth. There's no changing it. So the manipulator, they are about feeding you whatever they think will make you tick. Changing the story if they have to, they will change it, right? It's all lies. It's all a facade. So they're not truthful, and they'll make it appear like they care. They'll make it appear like they care in order to get you to listen to them, but they don't genuinely care. They are operating in their own self-interest. And if you look in the broader scope of their life, even outside the context of how they're interacting with you, you can see that. Okay? And one of the ways you can tell that, by the way, just something I should quickly mention, is if they notice something that's wrong, or at least wrong in their mind, are they willing to put forth a hand to help? Or do they simply want to judge you and accuse you while doing absolutely nothing to help? Because if they're not willing to do anything to help, you already know, man, it's out of self-interest that they are trying to find your flaws. If it were out of a selfless interest, they might see your flaws and try and help you with it. But if they don't want to help you, they will just find whatever flaw or make up a flaw that's not truly a flaw, and they won't offer to help at all. Okay, it's meant to put you down to keep them up here on top, right? So now that I've said all that, how do you sort of counter it? Well, let me just say that as life has gone on and as I've come to learn things and come to develop, fundamentally I'm a very compassionate person, and that's something that is almost a contradiction in this world sometimes, just because everyone kind of is aware that compassionate people are taking advantage of a lot. And yes, I've had many people try to take advantage of me, and yes, I have had people who've succeeded in taking advantage of me. Okay? But I have learned that there's a way to counteract this. Okay? So, like I said, the opposite of manipulation is to be that sort of parental type person. In my case, fatherly person. And so, if I want to sort of undo this manipulation, right, they could be extremely, extremely manipulative. But what I effectively need to do is to go overboard on the sort of parental side of things. Okay, I need to go overboard on the caring. I need to go overboard on the, almost like you think of a strict parent who, they're trying to put their kid in line. It's almost like I have to go overboard on that side. You've got the manipulative person over here, and I'm going overboard on what's the opposite of manipulation over here. Kind of like that sort of strict, stern, parental type of thing occurring. And it creates a clash because they're clear over here, and I'm clear over here. Okay? But I will go ahead and give it a real world story. So I recognize not all of you who are watching this are thinking in terms of I say have a kid, a child who's manipulative, even though I'm a foster parent. My experiences go beyond just foster parenting. So I want to give you a real world example, just working with adults who are manipulative, and the way in which I sought to counteract it and subdue it. So there are different methods, different skill sets I have under my belt that I use. But in this particular situation, I was taken advantage of in basically in kind of an emotional way. So even though I perhaps convey a sense of being, really, logically minded and just everything for me just pure logic, I tend to talk that way, especially in these videos. I'm a very emotionally soft person, and I can be taken advantage of in an emotional way because I'm really soft in that regard. So in this particular instance, it had to do with a job, which I had for a year, that the boss told me he was planning on laying me off. And he said he was planning on doing it within 2 weeks, and that I was going to be the first one to go because I'd been, not hired on for that long, didn't have such and such a skill, yada, yada, yada. I was the first to go, and then maybe there'd be other people after me, more likely than not, within 2 weeks. And within the same span of time, I'm going to work, and it's just not fulfilling because, we're just sweeping the floor. It's a welding job. We're sweeping the floor that's already been swept with no work done on it, and we're just barely collecting even just a tiny little bit of dust. And doing that for, I think he's still having us run 10-hour days. 10 hours of basically just sweeping the floor and just trying to find something that was dirty. Like literally wiping the walls, wiping, the ceiling, and then going and wiping it all again. It's just, there's a whole bunch of us, and it's just, so I already have this anxiety now because he's saying he's deliberately planning on laying me off. And then at work, I have literally nothing to do. And so it wreaked psychological havoc on me, which ended up causing me just to immediately go look for new work. And I ended up ultimately finding new work. But as I was in the process of doing all that, I had some sort of advertisements come up about, unemployment benefits, and I kind of inquired about it, and it was like, oh yeah, just as long as you didn't complete a full 40-hour work week. So, I just ended up leaving that job. I didn't really have enough to do. I ended up applying and then ended up getting another job the following week, and so I just kind of packed up all my stuff. I ended up going to this other job. I was like, oh, I might as well apply. Maybe they'll give me a partial little bit of money to help me transition. Not to mention I took a pay cut, and I took, a $5 an hour pay cut with this other job. And so I was like, oh, maybe it'll just kind of help soften things a little bit for me. So I did that, but I was in an emotionally distraught state, and I wasn't, thinking straight. Because if I were thinking straight, I'd realize what I was doing was stupid. I'd realize, hey, bam, 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 hit yourself on the head. just stick with the job, keep sweeping the floor for 10 hours a day, making more money until he officially lays you off. And then when he officially lays you off, then you apply for unemployment, and then you find a new job. But I was in such an emotionally wrecked state. That wasn't what I was doing. Anyway, I got a new job, and then it didn't work out, and then I bounced into another job, which is where I'm at currently. And fortunately, it was deemed an essential job because this all happened prior to COVID. And I still took a pay cut, but it's improved since then. I've gotten some raises. So anyway, I didn't think about it anymore. I made that one application to unemployment. I didn't think about it anymore. And then while I'm in the job I am currently and doing work and all is well, and I've completely forgotten about the paperwork I sent for unemployment, I got a phone call. Answered it. It was some lady from Department of Labor, and she was like, did your boss, yes or no, say I am laying you off? I was like, that's not what he said. He said that he was planning on laying me off within 2 weeks. She's like, no. Did he or did he not say I am laying you off? Well, no. And she's like, well, then your application was fraudulent, and I'm going to report it as fraudulent. Hangs up. Okay. I am all sorts of up in an emotional mess yet again. I'm just starting to calm down from the emotional mess, and I'm all back into an emotional mess again. And I get a packet in the mail, and there's a court date. It was by phone call. So I was like, at first it's just, you have these emotions like, man, you want to hit yourself on the head, you're unhappy, you feel like you've done something really wrong, and then you're like, but wait a minute, it's not that black and white, there was a lot of other nuances there, and there's a certain sense of like they're trying to take advantage of me and report me as being fraudulent, in a certain sense of maybe my previous boss is trying to take advantage of me. It started not seeming fair, so I put my logical mind to work. And so I ended up deciding, I'm going to make that phone call, and I'm going to discuss it because, I don't care if they say I don't deserve to receive unemployment benefits, because at this point I have another job. It doesn't matter. I got a new job practically immediately after, and then I had to bounce around because that job had a million OSHA violations, and I just didn't feel safe. And I bounced into the job where I'm at currently. But it's like, well, I immediately found new work. It just doesn't make sense. Why are you labeling me as fraud when I try and find new work as soon as I can, etc. It doesn't make sense. So when that date came, I made the phone call, and this is what I did. So just kind of awareness. I want you guys to see the manipulation that's going on here. Okay. So first of all, I found out that if my prior employer laid me off and I applied for unemployment benefits, then basically they have an account that's set up where taxes pull money from them, and the amount of taxes that they have pulled is dependent on the number of people that they lay off. So the more people a company lays off, the more they get taxed. Okay, so he has an interest, my prior boss has an interest in getting me to quit instead of laying me off, because he doesn't want the company to be taxed more. Okay, so he has a vested interest in sort of the emotional mess that's put in. Now, as far as the gal with the Department of Labor, well, I don't know her whole story. I don't know everything to do with her job, but I'm willing to bet that for her, the more fraudulent cases she finds, the better it is for her career. So even if I don't fully fit within the category of someone's acting fraudulently, which in my mind, someone's acting fraudulently is trying to obtain something which they don't deserve, to include money. Which in my case, by the way, just so you know, no money was ever owed to me. Even that 1 week, like even if they had said that, unemployment money was owed to me, the first week wasn't counted for payment. Then the following week, I had a new job, which means even though I am quitting that job, even if somehow I'd been eligible still to receive unemployment, quitting that job, it would have sort of reset the clock. I would have to have that waiting period again, and then the week after, I start another job. So, in other words, no money would have ever been owed to me, even if it had been decided that yes, I was due receiving unemployment. Okay, so no money was at all ever a part of this process. The penalty for me, this is, remember, right before COVID, the penalty for me would be I would be ineligible to receive unemployment for a whole entire year. Obviously, it didn't matter in the end because I kept my job in the whole period. But that would be my penalty. So there's these two different there's this sort of manipulation, right? There's this manipulation on the part of my previous boss because he wants to make it sound like what he's doing is for my good, right? Like, I just wanted to warn him that he might get laid off just to kind of help him out, rather than, hey, I want to get him to quit so I don't get taxed more, right? And then for the guy with the labor department, it's like, hey, I'm just finding these fraudulent cases, and the boss of the company, he's the one that wanted to pursue the case. Manipulation on both parts. So the boss is trying to manipulate me out of his own best interest, and then the guy with the Department of Labor, I'm sure she knew that no money would ever get pulled, but that's not what she's telling my prior boss, right? She's working her strings for her own advantage here to try and get my previous boss to want to go after me because she wants to have it help her career, that she found a fraudulent case, and my previous boss, doesn't want to have this extra tax. So there's this manipulation that's just going all around here. So what my tactic was ultimately, in order to try and undo this, is basically, remember, they present themselves as caring, but they don't really care except for their own self-interest. So when I got on the phone call, basically my tactic was to make myself as little as possible. I would call the judge, Your Honor, because although I don't have a lot of interaction with judges, I just recognize that that's one of those respectful terms. So I'm using, yes, Your Honor, a submissive, passive kind of way of interacting. These other people are obviously not doing that, but I am. So I'm acting in a submissive way. I'm putting myself down low, okay? And I want to kind of pull out sort of these other different things that are occurring, such as, hey, I just barely bought a house, I need to pay my mortgage, I'm just trying to make sure that I can pay for my bills and everything else, and these are the circumstances that happened, and I try to find a new job as soon as I could, and I was able to do exactly that, all these different details. So basically, the message I have to convey is I'm not trying to steal, I'm not trying to act fraudulently, I'm just someone that's just trying to get through with life, just trying to do my best, trying to be a sort of providing member of society. These are rough circumstances. I'm trying to do my best with the circumstances. Like I accept all the different authority figures. I accept the authority of the judge. Just I'm the little guy. And within that context, the manipulation of these other individuals, it really undermines it. It really, really undermines it. Because if I make myself sort of big and sort of, trying to lash out and attack, then the effect is almost like two lions going to battle with each other. And then the judge has to pick between two lions. But if I make myself little, it's almost like you've got a situation, you've got the lions, which, prior boss, gal from the Department of Labor, you've got these lions that are coming after me, and I just want to present myself as the lion. Like, hey, judge, please have mercy on me. They're trying to attack me, right? That's the sort of effect that you have. And I could tell that it didn't take long for the judge to sympathize with me and to sympathize with my situation, even if what I did was dumb, because I was in an emotionally chaotic state, right? I should have been thinking like, hey, no, like, I'm technically quitting my job because I didn't wait for him to say you're laid off. Like, I didn't think because it's just so emotionally chaotic. But still, he sided with me because, it took several questions. Like for example, when it came to my boss telling me, my prior boss telling me, that he was planning on laying me off, that I was, not hired on for very long, to have all this experience, this and that. He was like, my boss says, I was just trying to help. The judge said, over the phone call, the judge said, so how is that supposed to help? By making him lose sleep at night? And then when it came to the gal with the Department of Labor, it's interesting because he asked her how much money was paid. And she said, no money was paid. It was during the waiting period, and he made no other weekly submissions after that point. And then the judge said, so why did this case come to me? And her response was, hey, his boss wanted to. Right? I mean, who the person is who's pulling the strings to try and get the boss to go after me because, So it was ridiculous, but basically what the judge did was he just said, no, I didn't act fraudulently, but no, I didn't deserve any payments, which he might have made a different decision had payment actually been made to me because of the circumstances. But whereas no payments had been made to me, no payments that ever would have been due to me, I was in another job, everything was fine and well. It made no sense to say, yes, I deserve to receive unemployment benefits and, that and undo the fraudulent. So he just undid the fraudulent part. So he said, all right, now a penalty of not being able to apply for unemployment for a year, now a penalty, and, but yeah, you don't get unemployment benefits, which didn't even matter. So that's just one case in which I've gone to bat against manipulative people. But honestly, there's many, many more stories I could give to you. When I say the sort of contrasting of going overboard on the parental end of things, that is where basically, I know this video is getting long, so I'll shorten it for you. But basically, when I take that stance, what I do is I look around for what the truth is, and I let my logical portion go overboard. Because a person who is manipulative, they leave behind a messy trail, a very messy trail. Because they will tell one story to one person, another story to another person. Just, everyone gets a little snippet of different lies, different stories. And so, where I say, I go over on the parental end, the logical, analytical end, just what I do is I look around to figure out what all the different pieces are. And I say, oh, this person is acting this way because of such and such and such. And, oh, that person's acting in that way because of such and such and such. And basically where I say I'm acting that parental role is because I'm finding all the different flaws. I'm creating an environment of understanding, re-knitting together all the sort of division that is occurring. and sort of bring people back together. And by sort of revealing what's going on and revealing the truth, effectively, little by little, I make it known who the real enemy is. Right? I'm not the real enemy. Like I care. I show that I care by trying to help pull everyone back together and find out where the divisions are going. Because I'll have to give you guys other stories in future videos. But I've noticed that anywhere you find manipulative people, it's like they will start with one little seed, and then it will just sort of grow. And before you know it, you have a mess with people fighting against people and all this different division. And the manipulative person loves that environment because, remember, they are sort of fake showing that they care. Really, they created the chaos, but within all that chaos that they created, they want to show that they're the one that cares, right? They want people that sort of make that assumption so that you listen to them. So now, if you go in as a sort of parental individual, the sort of person who legit cares, not fake care while simultaneously sowing seeds of division, right? If you go in there as the person who really cares, you figure out what the real problems are, you stitch everything together, you let people know of the things, the little lies, the things that they didn't know, why different people are acting the way they are because of a different set of information that's being given to them, what's being excluded from them, or what lies are being said. Right? You just make it known, you knit everyone back together that had been divided by that person, and then the only person that doesn't fit any longer is the manipulator. That is the person that no longer fits. Alright, well, I think this video has become long enough. I will have to share with you guys some other information in the future about the nuances of people who are manipulative, the different tactics that they have, and obviously I also want to get into it when it comes to children and foster children, because a lot of kids who've come into my home, they exhibit one form of manipulation or another. So there's a whole lot to talk about there, but hopefully this video was of interest to you and hopefully you're able to learn something from it. So thank you for watching, and this is Soul. You can feel free to look at my Patreon page. I post little snippets and updates and aspects of my life there, and hopefully as time goes on I will better develop that. So feel free to look at it. It is patreon.com/soul to soul.